starring
Mike Murray.
This is
SNL.
SNL by the numbers.
Numbers.
Smoking Chappelle shines. Dangerous Dave delivers. Don't pop that balloon. There's the opening haiku for you. I am your host, Mike Murray, and this is SNL By The Numbers, the home of SNL stats. Tonight we are covering episode 979 of Saturday Night Live, hosted by four-timer Dave Chappelle, musical guest GloRilla. This podcast is a presentation of LateNighter.com. And don't pop that balloon because Andrew Haynes is here. He's a nephew of North Carolina. Haven't seen him in 448 days. How have you been, my man? Good to have you back.
It's so good to be back. I've been awesome. It has just been, a little bit. It's been nice to settle back down. January's been a settle down month for me. I'm doing dry January as I usually do. So that's very centering. Also, like everybody, I'm like starting to exercise and it'll last for a little while and then disappear. But just had a great, last several weeks. Went to Europe for 2 weeks for my honeymoon, which was amazing. We did, a few nights in Paris, went down to Switzerland and then took like one of those river cruises up through the German Christmas markets. Then we did Amsterdam and a few days in London. And it was amazing. I could live in a lot of cities over there. But I live in Raleigh, which I love too. And so it's nice to settle down. We had a very busy few weeks.
So happy for you. It sounds like your 2024 was great. And Victoria Franso, a damsel of Detroit, she's back with us too. How was your 24?
You know what? I'm blessed. I'm very blessed. And now we're here. So I'm even more blessed.
You want to elaborate on that? How blessed were you?
How blessed was I? I quit a job I didn't love, finished my Saturday Night Live program and met some fans of the show, which is great. And then did a great holiday show in Detroit of my first sketch holiday show, which was really fun, and met another listener of the show there and had some laughs. Did a lot of comedy, did a lot of, I was going to swear, but goofing around is what I'll say instead. And, I got a dog. Her name's Mia. She's 23 different breeds. Still single, but I'm okay with that. So no honeymoons for me.
I know 23 and me. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So when you say you finished the SNL program, just as an extra interview before we get into the stats, I can't wait. But just tell us about, what's your summary out the door? Like, what was it like? Was it 2 years? 1 year?
It was a year. It was a year program. I learned a lot. It's the spirit of putting so there's a showcase at the end of each year. And the spirit of it is you move fast. And we had a little bit more than a week. We had, I think, 3.5 weeks, but it was still in the same spirit of we have to get ideas out. You have to just try things. You have to move on. You have to pick quickly. For example, we did a rap. I co-wrote a rap with someone in the show. And the first time we rapped it all the way through, no stopping, no going back, was when we performed it first time on stage. And so that was, and same with the song. I did a solo song and I sang, it was a political satire song.
What was the rap about?
It was called Baghdad Ass Up. So 2 out of 4 of us were daughters of Iraqi immigrants. She lives in Vienna, though, and I live here in Detroit. And she's an Arab Muslim, and I'm an Assyrian Christian. So we did a little fun bit about it. My favorite line, and a line I'm really proud of, out of everything in that show, the one line I'm proud of is, "I'm sorry for that thing that we didn't do." You know what we're talking about, Towers 1 and 2. And that was, if anything, I walk away with that.
Yeah, and if you've been following By The Numbers, that's the second 9/11 reference that Victoria's mentioned in just as many shows. So
can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop. I just like to beat folks to the punch, because it's usually brought up around me.
All right. Gotta, just go with it.
Yeah.
But
I do really want to hear the rest of the rap now.
After show?
That's the By The Numbers after show.
Wasn't asking you to perform it. I'm just sharing my feelings right now.
I want to hear it too.
Of the entire show, which we'll chat about. We'll chat about internally.
All right. So anyway, was it a good experience, the SNL scholarship program? Okay.
Yes. And I got to meet a producer from the show. I won't say names just for...
Yeah, please don't.
Yeah, but he was great, and he liked the 2 musical numbers, so...
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in
the
spirit of that, let's get back into SNL. Today is January 22nd, and if I have your permission, I'm going to go back in time.
Now, I just popped this chicken dinner in and send it back in time.
Starting off 1977, we're in season 2, episode 12, 2 days after the inauguration of President Jimmy Carter. Oscar-winning actress for Rosemary's Baby at age 80. It's pride of Quincy, Mass., my hometown. It's Ruth Gordon. So at this point, no one over the age of 58 had hosted SNL, so she made history right there at age 80. Chuck Berry's in the house performing Johnny Be Good. And we got John Belushi saying live from New York for the first time. Classic cold open. Go check it out. He gets wheeled in on a wheelchair. His doctor is there, says if he doesn't perform, I don't get paid. And if I don't get paid, he doesn't get his drugs, which wakes up John Belushi to say live from New York at Saturday night. We got Gilda Radner as Emily Latella twice, once in a sketch with Ruth and then another on Update. First appearance of Aykroyd's E. Buzz Miller, and last appearance of the Michael O'Donoghue's Mr. Mike's Least Loved Bedtime Tales. Gilda's in that one as well. We move on to 1983, a much talked about recently episode because it's Lily Tomlin doing a sort of double duty. She performs in character as Purvis Hawkins, and there's no musical guest, so it's kind of counted as double duty. So coming up with the Chalamet double D next week, it's kind of reminiscent of that. So we haven't seen it was her third and final time hosting. Did not appear again on SNL for 36 years until Pete Davidson's Grace and Frankie rap pre-tape, and Andy Kaufman made his final appearance on SNL. He quote unquote purchased commercial time and a ruse to get back on the air after he was banned by the audience poll, and he would die a year later at age 35. And moving on to 2005, season 30, we have Paul Giamatti in the house. He's promoting Sideways, snubbed for the Oscar. We also have Ludacris and Sum 41, who are promoting the remix of Get Back. So if that takes you back to 2005, I don't know if that does, then what will? This is 2 days after the inauguration of President George W. Bush for the second time. We get maybe my favorite Tina Amy moment, the Bush twins cold open, one of the all-time greats. So they're going to bed at the inaugural ball, talking in their secret twin language about their concerns about, weapons of mass destruction and the war. And then, of course, they get tucked in by Will Forte's W. And then Daryl Hammond comes in as Dick Cheney and says, in their language, I heard everything. So last but not least, 2022, aforementioned Will Forte becomes the 35th cast member to return after being in the cast to host Italian band Måneskin. They're playing their famous cover of Beggin'. Kristen Wiig makes 5 appearances in the night, and 5 cast members do not appear at all. So weird one, but memorable one. We get MacGruber back as an anti-vaxxer and January 6th insurrectionist. So I guess MacGruber is off the hook. He's been pardoned. And we have 2 vintage Forte appearances. One as Mark Zaz, this unhinged game show host in Kids Clash, and then as some sort of male prostitute in a threesome sketch with Mikey and Heidi. So that was back in time.
Now, I just popped this chicken dinner in and send it back in time.
So now we are back to 2025, first show of the year, and Dave's back. So Haynes, I had you on. I think you're like me. You're a big Chappelle guy. And these days, when you say you're a big Chappelle guy, it's kind of like, well, up until what point? Or, So how are you feeling about Dave these days entering the show before you had seen it? I can speak for myself, but I want to hear from you first.
Well, I always say, when we start these conversations, I always say stuff like, Dave Chappelle has said a lot of things in recent years that I disagree with. But he is also still, I don't think that there's maybe a single person in comedy that has influenced my sense of humor more. Chappelle's show came out when I was like 19 or something in college, like perfect time to just be like really digging into some, that kind of content. And it shaped me in a lot of ways. And I used to be able to basically recite his first couple of specials, word for word, almost, and so been a really big Dave Chappelle fan for a long time. That doesn't mean that, he's, like I said, he said some things that I didn't think were just good ways about thinking about life and stuff recently. But less recently now, moving more into the past. He's like, as he said with this show, he's trying to be less controversial. So listen, I knew that there was a chance, of course, that he might come back for the election. Of course, we ended up, getting the date closest to January 6th. And so I definitely was looking forward to it. I thought that, you wanted my thoughts before I saw the show. So I was looking forward to it. And if we talk about the show, I'll tell you what I thought about the show.
We certainly will. I think for me, much like Haynes, I was watching Chappelle's show all the time, would be up late, seeing the reruns all the time. Even if I'd seen the episode 10 times, I'd watch it again. And Haynes, you reminded me of talking about his specials and memorizing them. Do you remember the bit macaroni necklace from For What It's Worth?
Of course. It's the ending bit, and it's so heartfelt, right? It's so heartfelt. That's the moment where you're like, oh.
Because I was reminded of that in the Immigrant Dad talk show when he said, when Marcelo's character said,
exactly,
your house was my balls, whatever. Because in that bit, Dave's talking about becoming a father and his child making him a macaroni necklace, and he says, "You used to live in my balls." So that's remind me of that. So Victoria, with that being said, over to you. Chappelle back for a fourth time. What's the temperature on, New Year, new Chappelle, or were you kind of not jazzed to see him again?
So unlike these two gentlemen, two of the very few gentlemen who don't give me acid reflux, but instead give me joy. Shout out to Haynes and Mike here. I did not watch Chappelle's show growing up. My introduction to to Dave Chappelle was Robin Hood, Men in Tights, if you know, you know, and You've Got Mail. So I've always seen a tame version of him, but I always knew that his comedy wasn't for the faint of heart. He's always been kind of, I don't know. I should say this. The first time I heard about Rick James was when he did I'm Rick James, bitch. So, but yeah, other than that, before I didn't really have too much context. I always knew that he was out there and his comedy wasn't, clean by any means. Really don't care for the things he said in the last few years. But if I'm being completely honest, the last time he hosted, I feel like he kind of half-assed it. And I don't really think I said that on any show here. I think he kind of half-assed it, and he introduced a sketch and then sat down. I was like, okay. And maybe he was feeling it from the backlash. Maybe he felt he should take a step back, but wasn't too excited, but was pleasantly surprised. So I think he did okay.
Can I jump in to follow up on that for a second? I thought the last episode was the last time he was on was a bit disappointing in some ways, but I actually really liked I didn't feel like he was necessarily half-assing it. And I like the way he introduced that sketch and then sat down. That I think was a throwback to the format they used to use on Chappelle's show, where he would talk to the audience and say, now we're going to go to the sketch, and then throw to it. And I loved that kind of reference. I think that was kind of an homage to the Chappelle show. I don't know if you're supposed to give yourself homages, but we'll just call it a throwback. So
are we talking about him doing the intro, on Chappelle's show? He used to say look, check out the screen, and they'd play a pre-recorded clip, but the heaven scene when he had Mikey Day playing his role in the sketch, talking about that one?
that was amazing, and we were breaking the fourth wall, so I loved that. I thought maybe Victoria was, well, you could tell us which one you're referring to, Victoria. I thought you were talking about the one at the beginning where they go to the brand icons who are getting fired, and they're like, "I'm sorry, we have to fire you," and she goes, "But I'm Aunt Jemima."
No, I was talking about the heaven one, which I will say I did watch Wild and Out, and that's how I know Mikey Day. Well, actually, no, I know Mikey Day before that in his David Blaine bits on MySpace. Check those out. But
Jesus.
David Blaine, you demon. No, which I enjoyed the sketch itself, and I was like, okay, but perhaps that was a shout out or homage to his show, but I wouldn't know.
So, Victoria, did Chappelle phone it in this week? So can you debut the screen time for us, please?
Yes, sir. All right. Coming in hot at number 1 is Dave Chappelle himself at 27. Hold on. Okay.
Getting the specs on.
Yeah. I'm a bit older since the last time I've been on here. Dave Chappelle with 27 minutes and 21 seconds. Second place, I think this is the first time I've done one of these where she's here, and that's Sarah Sherman at 7 minutes and 56 seconds. Colin Jost, 6 minutes and 52 seconds. And then our girl GloRilla, one of my favorite musical guests so far this season, at 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Then we have the Queen Bee herself, Ego Wodum, at 6 minutes and 16 seconds. Marcelo, our immigrant dad, at 6 minutes and 3 seconds. Devin Walker, pleasantly surprised to see him further up this list at 5 minutes and 4 seconds. Then Michael Che, of course, at 4 minutes and 43 seconds. Mikey Day, Mr. Cheez-Its, at 4 minutes and 16 seconds. Bowen Yang leads the 3-minute club at 3 minutes and 35 seconds, followed by Michael Longfellow at 3 minutes and 9 seconds. Keenan, 3 minutes and 7 seconds. Kind of surprised. I mean, actually, no, not surprised. We'll talk about that he's this low.
We didn't see Keenan until after update, much like the Charlie XCX episode. So that was another interesting wrinkle in that show. Was I figured with Dave in the house, remembering like Eddie Murphy's monologue, that when Keenan came out there, Tracy Morgan and Dave and Chris Rock, and they had like these Black American comedian titans out there, that Keenan would get some work. But yeah, we did not see him until he led with Devin that police station sketch.
Yep, which was great. Then we have Andrew Dismukes leading the One Club, or I should call it Wonderland, at 1 minute and 38 seconds. Chloe Feynman at 1 minute and 28 seconds. Jane is at Wickline at 1 minute and 16 seconds. James Austin Johnson, who changed his Instagram handle, so I can't call him Shrimp Jaj anymore, at 1 minute and 15 seconds. Donald Rawlings, 58 seconds. Ashley Padilla at 24 seconds. Steve Higgins at 5 seconds. And My Heart Breaks, Emil Hakim at 0.
Yes, first shutout of the season for Emil. We got the reaction from Victoria, but Haynes, I haven't talked to you all season, so give me a quick word on whether you've liked Emil this season, because his stats have been spectacular. This is his first night.
Yeah, his stats have been spectacular, and I've liked him in his little parts. I think his delivery's been on point. Haven't seen him stutter over cue cards or anything like that. I'd love to see a little bit more of him, but I think he's totally been on the spot for the little moments that he's been featured. I think that I think I'd like to see a little bit more of him.
Mm-hmm.
And this definitely didn't seem like an Emil problem. I looked at the featured player usage over every episode I've covered, and this was the lowest featured player usage across, how many there were, whether there's one, I guess there was more featured players last year, but one rookie with Chloe Trost. But this was the lowest usage of featured players just across the board. So that goes for Ashley and Jane too, who just only appeared in that Pop the Balloon pre-tape. So Emil, that's definitely not surprising because just the kind of night it was. But he did have a hell of a run between Bill Burr and Chris Rock. He had 417, 311, 422, 437. And then he had like a minute 9 with Martin Short, but just cameo crazy episode, and then 0 this week. But Victoria, who had some good numbers that you want to talk about and performances from this week?
Yeah, I am really pleasantly surprised, as I said, to see Devin Walker higher up. I've been wanting to see more of him. I think this is the first time I've done this. No, never mind. I'll take that back. But no, I've been wanting to see more of him. I think he had some really great opportunities this show. And yeah, it was really great to see him. And I think it was called the Evacuation sketch. And then in the police station sketch, just to see him take on more of a prominent role versus, just standing on the sidelines.
Definitely, as the resident sports talk radio SNL guy, I've been pretty tough on Devin for the low numbers. He's been averaging a minute 44 this season. And if I take out the premiere, the Gene Smart episode where he had just shy of 5 minutes, it would drop down a lot lower. So this is his first above 5 minute episode of the season. Couldn't be happier for Devin, seeing him get that chance to do that. And then the police station sketch as well, being an A role there with Keenan, was great. And just, I feel like this is a stat I'll dig into. Maybe we'll see if we get another stand-up or so, or how many we get, because we've already had a few with Mulaney and Burr. But when stand-ups are in the building, I feel like they give some work to the other stand-ups that are in the cast. So, and for Devin, that worked out with Chappelle for sure. Haynes, over to you. Who do you want to shout out on this list?
Well, just to follow up on the Devin thing, it's not just wanting to see more of him, but I feel like we need to see more of him at this point. And honestly, I would love it if, writers were casting him and gave him a little bit more range. I feel like he's very often playing a very straight character who's just kind of like a nice guy. He's like, huh, okay. And he has like a lot of these kind of like, it seems like a very similar style character. I would like to see him written into a little bit more exciting role in some of these sketches. But
what kind of role would you pitch for Devin that would be maybe out of the box?
See, I don't know, but I'd like someone to give him an opportunity to stretch maybe a little bit crazier. Not that any person needs to be pigeonholed into just doing like they can't be. I mean, we need good straight characters. Like Mikey Day plays a very straight character like all the time. But I want him to have more opportunity, not just on screen, but with what he gets to do on screen. I think I'd just like to see his chops in some other areas. As far as the folks this week, I mean, I loved Sarah Sherman's Weekend Update character. I thought that was so pretty good. Fun. Yeah, I mean, anytime she's on Weekend Update, busting Colin's chops. I mean, it hasn't gotten old yet. It may get old someday. But to me, that's A+ material. Yeah. So that was fantastic. And I'll give a shout out to I just thought Marcelo killed the Immigrant Parents 2 sketch. I thought it maybe was better than the first one, and I thought Marcelo just was really driving home the character. So definitely big ups to him.
Yes. Yeah. Third now, I know, Victoria, I'm going to go over to you. You're a Marcelo head, right? So
enthusiast now, for sure.
Now Marcelo has had 3 recurring characters this season, and 2 of them contained in the season with Domingo and Sabado Gigante. So so Marcelo debuted this with Rami Youssef. That was the show I was lucky enough to see. So at least now I can say I saw a recurring character, kind of, I guess. But this is for Marcelo. We talk about recurring characters not being a thing, or are they a thing? So, but he's definitely bringing them back. So Victoria, maybe commenting on those 2, because we saw Sabado Gigante. Me and you talked about it with the next week, I think. So what do you think about the Immigrant Dad talk show and just Marcelo this season?
The Immigrant Dad talk show is like one of the first times where I've really seen myself on TV, and not like myself personally, because I'm not an immigrant dad by any means, but my family, I should say. That was the first time I watched SNL live with my dad in a very long time, and Immigrant Dad talk show came up, and I said, Dad, this is going to be a mirror of you. And lo and behold, my dad was cracking up. And so to me, there's like that sentimental value behind it, but also it's just freaking funny. He goes, what do you do if your son slams the door? He goes, I shoot him with a gun. He should have respect because my balls used to be your house. And that is like a little too close to the nose. But yeah, I love it. I'm glad Rami Youssef being the first one. If anyone remembers, I was on here raving about it because
You were.
both of the Middle Eastern, North African backgrounds. So it was kind of scary for me to see Dad up there, but it's okay. It's good. No, but yeah, it was. I love it. Marcelo leans into his culture, and for me that really works. And I think it's just because we have a lot of cultural similarities, and maybe that's why I'm such a Marcelo enthusiast.
And I feel like with Marcelo, there's been some pros and cons this season with his usage. We talked about that, had a good chat about it after the Marty episode with Andrew Dick and John Schneider, so we can go check that one out. I think some good points are made about where they're putting him and kind of making him do the same thing. But when I see him do something like this again, this is what I want to see more of. TikTok popularity aside, I will not, ever besmirch that. But having a fresh take and actually just writing a classic sketch format that I feel like we haven't seen in a bit, at least in like the talk show, which we see once a week. I definitely like that. So for Marcelo, this is his 5th episode over 5 minutes. That's really good. For Bowen, we did not see a lot of him, but he did hit 8 career hours of screen time during that police station sketch. So congrats to Bowen. And for Chappelle, we're going to talk about him next segment, but he's now the host with the most screen time this season, 35% more than average. And the average was 20 minutes, 5 seconds. He finished with 27:21. And of course, that is due to his record-breaking monologue. So one of the times where I had the stopwatch out live on Saturday night, I needed the number right away when the door opened and Chappelle pops in. It's like, I need to see, is he going to break 16 minutes, 19 seconds, which was his record already in season 46. That was the day they called the election for Joe Biden. And now here we are 4 years later, and he finished with 16 minutes, 49 seconds. So Haynes, as a Chappelle guy, just comments on the monologue and its enormous length.
Well, I really enjoyed this monologue because he didn't get to the I'm not sure if preaching is the right word for it, but Chappelle has always done a thing where he touches on like morality and stuff. It's never just jokes. But I liked how I feel like in the last one he got into the general public. It was trying to attack the public sentiment a little bit too early, kind of from the get-go, if I recall. This I just loved how it was like straight comedy until the end. I love that. So great comment from George Jones right there. I feel like Bill Burr's was a little slow and chunky, and he had a great monologue another time on SNL, but this recent one it was not so great, and that's kind of the way I felt about the most recent previous Chappelle monologue before this one. But this one I thought he crushed, hitting just real straight comedy from the get-go, classic Chappelle style, not being afraid to touch on sensitive subjects immediately, saying like, as soon as I agreed to be on the show, LA exploded into flames. And of course it would be too soon to talk about a tragedy like that. Winks to camera, and then we go straight into that, to those jokes. And I thought it was well rounded. I will say this, when he came on after the 2016 election, and he said, he basically, it seemed like he was trying to mend a divided America and said, Donald Trump's been elected and I'm going to give him a chance. And I hope that he will give, I forget exactly how he put it. But basically, populations, who deal with more oppression in society, basically, he just said, but I hope he'll give those people, a chance as well. And and then he made jokes. He got some backlash from that, and especially, he's saying that before everything started. And then we had all the, the administration, and he addressed in one of his specials about how he was like, man, I really screwed up, saying that last time. And then he kind of almost did it again. This was a historically disenfranchised. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Dan Carlin. So he basically did this again. And to me, in the moment, it felt cringy because I was having a traumatic reaction to, my experience from that last one and everything that we've experienced afterwards. And I did not want to see that. In the moment, I really clenched up, and it felt cringy when he asked Donald Trump to told everyone that that everyone is counting on you, and but on rewatch, when I rewatched it, it was much less cringy. It was shorter than it felt like. Like in the moment, even though it only lasted like 15 seconds, it felt like a year in my head. Like when he was saying it in that moment. On the rewatch, it was much less cringy. So that's a credit to probably his writing. He's sitting at home writing this, and he's decided that this will sound good, if you hear it in perpetuity, but maybe he misjudged, at least from my experience, how it might be received in that moment. To me, I clenched up a little bit, thought it, and felt like it was a little bit cringy, but I love that. I mean, it's classic Chappelle, where he does comedy, and then he starts to get a little bit serious, and then he ramps up, he builds up that energy to a big kind of boom, plea or point at the very end. Kind of a mic drop moment. He didn't literally drop the mic this time like he did one other time on the show. But I do kind of hate, this is not the first time he's like kind of forgotten in the moment that there's a whole show to do. And then he just goes,
right,
all right, and good night.
Good night.
And it's like, yeah, we got a whole show to do now. And someone, I read someone online said, you can't lead up to that moment and then take that big grand stand and drive home a point and then say, and we've got GloRilla here, and we'll have a great show tonight.
And he did try. It was cut off. So the 60-minute, 49-second monologue based on the live screen time, as we watched it together. But it was because he did try to do that, Haynes, and they went right to break. I was like, all right, you've gone long enough. John mentioned that was, double the length that it was at Dress. So about an 8-minute monologue, and that became a 17 almost minute monologue. So when he did pause and say goodnight, and then he said, we have a great show. Like, he didn't even get to finish his sentence because they cut the break.
So he did say it after that because I saw live how he said goodnight, but then he like stood there and held the mic for a second, almost like had a little bit of a look on his face, like, oh crap, I forgot to do the thing. So it makes sense that occurred afterwards. But still just really funny. And, I mean, that to me, that I think I summed up my experience from top to bottom.
No, well said. Thanks for taking us through that. And I'm going to give Victoria a chance to give her thoughts on it. My last notes was just Sarah Sherman. That's been the theme of this season of By the Numbers, is her just ascension into SNL stardom. This is her 4th time this season as cast leader, and nobody in the cast in 49 had done that more than 3 times last year. So we're only 11 episodes in. 4 of them were led in the cast by Sarah Sherman, and we still have 9 to go. So very impressive. And I just want to point out for Michael Che, it's now been 30 shows since we've seen him outside of Update. So I'd love to see Che pop up somewhere else. I haven't seen him since the Pete premiere last year. So 30 shows ago. So Victoria, we're going to pivot to the next segment, looking at all of Chappelle's stats. But if you have any takes on the monologue, whether the humor of it or the theme of it, then I want to give you the floor before we move on.
I was just going to say the end of it and him calling out to Donald Trump. I think I felt the opposite. It was kind of like, okay, you're saying this. Did Donald Trump listen to Dave Chappelle? No. He does not care what Dave Chappelle has to say, obviously, given recent events. But for me, because I was already stressed about it, still am, and I think will be for a very long time. But him just saying, hey, man, we're counting on you. And I think in that sphere, like the manosphere, as they're starting to call it, with all those bro podcasts and whatnot, Chappelle is regarded very highly. And I thought maybe that was an opportunity for him to reach out to those folks and say, hey man, we're counting on you, do the right thing. And so, I mean, I don't know. I just felt some calmness and maybe some optimism because he didn't seem too nervous about everything. So I was like, okay, well then if that's how he's addressing it, maybe I can calm down. And then Shirley realized I cannot be calming down. So I had the opposite reaction, and I still stand by it. And I think it was a beautiful ending. I think he did it kind of beautiful from the Palisades to Palestine. I thought it was a nice poetic moment. But yeah, that's all. Other than that,
but I love your perspective, Victoria. I didn't think about him maybe kind of speaking to a different audience than me, and so that's a really great point. And I do think it was a poetic ending. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, I had a glimmer of hope just in that moment, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
And as I'm wearing my Tyrone Biggums hat, y'all got more of those Chappelle stats? Here we go. I've been doing a segment this year, Grade the Host. We look at the breakdown of their night. And so with Chappelle, we get a different kind of night. We get a long monologue. He sits out a sketch or two. This time it was that for live sketch, it was the police station sketch. And then there was only one pre-tape. It was a 10-1 with the Pop the Balloon. But, he did have he had three. Oh, no, this week he had 2 live sketches after the monologue. And then that was it for his time outside, introducing GloRilla. We didn't have any of those live intros that we alluded to earlier. So I figured because, it's from season 42 to now 50, I do have all those stats. So I look at Chappelle's career at SNL so far through 4 hosting stints. So I'll give you the screen time for his 4 nights. Season 42, 27 minutes 5. So very high out the gate. And then that night he appeared in the election night sketch with Chris Rock after, seeing the returns with all the white people in the room, knowing Hillary's going to win and then doubting it and then realizing it and bargaining with it, all the stages of grief. The meta Jerry's Place sketch, which when I did screen time for, I actually just forgot that it was that meta sketch because I was watching Leslie Jones just struggle. And then I was like, oh man, this is a rough sketch for Leslie. And then realizing that it was all an act to comment live at a press conference about how awful the sketch was. He did a brief appearance in the Kids Talk Trump pre-tape, picking up his daughter. I think it was Vanessa Bayer leading like a focus group with the kids. And then he did a last call with Sheila Sauvage, Kate McKinnon, at the bar with Keenan as the bartender. Then we had the first Kyle and Leslie pre-tape. And then he had the football party watching the Carolina Panthers, shout out Haynes. And we come to realize he's hanging with the bros, watching football, getting beers, and he is still breastfed by his mother, played by Leslie Jones. So that was his first episode. Again, 27 minutes, 5 seconds total in that show. The next one, we had 20 minutes, 9 seconds. So that is the season 46 early SNL stats days, where he had that record-breaking at the time monologue, the fired mascots or Uncle Ben sketch that was mentioned, where we have him playing the Allstate guy, Pete Davidson playing Count Chocula, Maya being Aunt Jemima, and just, about all that 2020, like getting rid of those stereotype mascots. He had this DC morning appearance that was a minute 35. It was like Donald Trump escaping in a car. It was kind of a forgettable sketch. And then that was it for him that night. It was very, very brief. Season 48, a couple years ago, he had a 14:59 monologue. His total in that episode was 2023 for screen time. And that was the night that Biden had won. He had the potato hole sketch where he was on a morning show as like a blues guitarist and had to, they were all laughing at what a potato hole is until he reveals what it really is. House of the Dragon came in that night. Oh, yeah, I completely skipped over the Walking Dead Chappelle show, which is the first episode where he brought back the characters. So pardon me for that. Then the barbershop talk sketch where Michael Longfellow played the straight man. He was the white barber, and when he made a comment, you just hear the buzzers as all the black barbers just didn't want to comment on what he had to say. Then the heaven scene, Mikey Day standing in for him as Dave Chappelle and Black Thought off stage. Or sorry, was it I forgot the musical guest that night with Mos Def was laughing off stage. And then Dave Chappelle this week, 2711 with Immigrant Dad Talk Show, Evacuation Alert, and Pop the Balloon. So a total of an hour, 34 and 48 seconds, not including the intros and the musical guest intros either. So Victoria, do you have a favorite? Actually, maybe we should save the favorites because we're gonna break it down. But just looking at the whole body of work, just in kind of an open question as we're really taking a deep dive about Chappelle as a sketch performer live, not on Chappelle's show.
I know stand-up is his like that's where he gets his bag from, or put, you know what I mean? But I wish he did more live sketches. I just feel like if, especially hearing from you guys, how awesome Chappelle's show was, that he's good at sketches and all of that. I wish he would do more on this show. It seems like he goes in deep on the monologue, which is great. He'll give us a pre-tape, great, and then leaves us really hanging on live sketches. Unless that's just me. Unless unless I need newer glasses. I don't know.
You're saying leaves us hanging in what way?
I just want more. I want him to participate more in the show, not just up front at the monologue. Because again, if you look here, he gave us a 16-minute, 49-second monologue, 2 sketches, and a pre-tape. I would love another sketch or 2.
Yeah, and the breakdown, to Victoria's point, if you look at all his shows, 62.7% of his time on SNL has been in the monologue. It's almost an hour across 4 episodes. 30% in live sketches, that's 11 of those, and 7% in pre-tapes. So Haynes, comments on the live versus pre-tape nature of the Chappelle SNL show.
I mean, I'm not concerned about the ratio of pre-tapes to live sketches, but I wouldn't hate it if he was in more sketches overall. But this is something that we've heard before. He has had episodes where it was kind of like it felt like the monologue was about all we got out of him. But this past episode, like, he was in several sketches off the top, and then I know that there were a lot that were cut for time that he would have been in as well. So I don't know that it's not like he is against participating in live sketches. I think that's just the way the cookie crumbled this time. And obviously, if the monologue goes 8 minutes longer than expected, that's going to impact a show that runs this tightly. But to Victoria's point, and also it's really sounding to me, Victoria, like you've never watched Chappelle's show. So that is something you should. I don't. Is it still on Netflix, Mike? Do you know? I know it was on Netflix earlier this year.
I don't think it is right now. I could be wrong because I no longer have Netflix, but this is going back a ways. This is now like a while ago, I guess over 15 years ago.
I know.
Freshman year of college, it was on Netflix, and me and my friends in the dorm rooms would rewatch every episode. So I remember it was on Netflix in 2011.
Okay, well it was actually on Netflix.
It's still on Netflix. It's still on Netflix.
Okay,
awesome.
There we go.
Nice. Amazing use of technology to crack that conundrum for us, Victoria. I would recommend watching it sometime. He is great in sketches. The sketches I think are based on a lot of his stand-up angles. But yeah, I'd love to see Dave in more sketches. He is good in sketches. I do think that and I don't know that Lauren would ever say that he didn't want Dave Chappelle in a sketch, but we know that Lauren doesn't exactly like breaking. Maybe it's a little bit different with the host, but it's like in the Immigrant Dad sketch, it didn't even seem like Dave was trying to keep a straight face. Like he was laughing at all of Marcelo's jokes. So maybe that's why we're not seeing him in this quite as many. But he is good, and I'd love to see him in more. But I don't have a problem that a lot of them are pre-tapes. That's fine.
Yeah, so of the 16 appearances Chappelle's made outside the 4, monster monologues, 11 live sketches, 5 pre-tapes. So that's the ratio right there. 28 minutes, 40 seconds in live sketches, 6 minutes, 42 seconds in pre-tapes. And I think TJ on the roundtable, our friend TJ, made a great point about how Dave seems to be able to just do whatever he wants. And I thought that was a great point because there are probably only a couple hosts out there that could pull that card and have like basically a rider of, hey, I will host, but I'm going to do whatever I want, which means I'm going to smoke during the monologue. It's going to be as long as I see fit. I'm going to maybe sit one out. I'm going to bring in the musical guests that I want, whether that's Black Star or A Tribe Called Quest, and just like enjoy myself. And I'm sure that Lauren is saying, of course, do whatever you want. So to make a Chappelle Show reference, we're not going to have a racial draft, but we are going to have a Chappelle bracket. So on this network, we have done brackets in the past, and I figured that on By the Numbers, let's breeze through one. I think the first one will be easy, but chat, I'm going to need you guys to weigh in on these matchups. We're going from 16 Chappelle appearances, and we'll try to be as brief as possible. But here we go. It is the Uncle Ben sketch versus Love and Leslie. And I put that as a 16 seed because Chappelle just only appears for the quick button at the end. Victoria, if you don't remember any of these sketches, or Haynes, you don't remember these sketches, then you can easily pass the chat. But if you want to weigh in, please do. So we're gonna go with we have a Love and Leslie. We have 3 Uncle Bens. Haynes, I'll go to you.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. Uncle Ben was amazing. Like, what just a fantastic sketch top to bottom. And on the note of breaking, obviously, we got Pete breaking and Dave a little bit when Dave does
Davidson's lips.
Dave obviously Dave improvs a little bit, which Lauren doesn't like either. But I think Lauren likes it when things work. And clearly that worked. And that sketch was just fantastic. Absolutely.
And the Love and Leslie pre-tape is amazing. It kicked off the whole lore of that pre-tape and Kyle backstage. I love every single one of those, but for Chappelle bracket, that's a no-brainer. Victoria, second matchup, we have the 9 seed versus the 8 seed. It's the 2 pre-tapes of Chappelle Show characters, so perfect to go to you on this one. We have House of the Dragon versus The Walking Dead. Do you have any takes on that matchup? And chat, please weigh in now.
Well, one, I agree with Uncle Ben, because I also had Maya Rudolph, but that I'm partial to her. But I don't know. Walking Dead says both. Victoria, and the entire chat goes
correct answer
for that too. So House of the Dragon was basically like a sequel to that pre-tape. So third matchup, we have that Mikey Day Heaven scene, which I'll save my comments on that, versus this week's 12 seed Immigrant Dad Talk Show. Victoria, is Marcelo going to be able to take down a 5 seed, or are we going with Mikey Day?
Immigrant Dad Talk Show, because Chappelle's actually in it.
Well, Chappelle is the catalyst of the Heaven scene. I will say that. I mean, the joke relies on Dave watching awkward white guy read lines that were meant for Dave Chappelle. So if Chappelle wasn't there, the sketch would be bizarre.
I thought it was a very creative take to break that fourth wall, have him commenting and chiming in. I definitely am voting for Heaven scene. I don't think it was lazy. I'll just say, Victoria, I don't like the idea of calling a black man lazy in this.
Oh my God, Haynes! How dare you?
We know you did not mean that way, but I vote Heaven scene, obviously.
White man.
Yep. So the chat agrees or disagrees with Victoria. It is Heaven scene, okay. And Dan Carl in the chat, when he said World Star, and Black Star and Dave Chappelle are just losing it off camera, offset. All right, so now we have this week's pre-tape Pop the Balloon versus Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle election night, the one I described earlier. Haynes, this matchup, what do you got?
Election night was way better. I mean, pop the balloon. Really, the only thing fun about it was that we got the recurring characters, and that wasn't the first time that we'd seen some of those characters. I think it was the first time that we'd seen Ashley Larry back on there. But election night, definitely, even though pretty much every line Chris Rock spoke, he like stumbled over the cue cards like he always does. And it kind of took some of the momentum away from some of the jokes, but it was a well-written sketch. And I think it like really attacked some hard truths. I totally imagine that there were some parties so exactly like that. For me, it's another easy pick, election night.
Victoria on that one?
I think Pop the Balloon, like personally, I enjoyed more than election night, but that's only because Pop the Balloon is for a very niche audience. You have to be on a particular side of TikTok to really appreciate that one. And I get that it was also bringing in a character of his, but I think election night still is solid and appeals to a greater audience. So I will go with election night as well.
All right. That moves on. And now we have in the next matchup, the 14 seed DC Morning versus Evacuation Alert. This is one of my favorite sketches of the year for this season. And, if you have any memory of the DC Morning, Haynes, let me know.
I don't remember DC Morning. Remind me.
That's what I was saying. It's basically reacting. It's kind of a sketch to comment on the election other than the cold open and stuff. It was they had Alec Baldwin do a voice as like Trump escaping, and that was kind of it. I think they had Mikey Day be Don Jr. as well, and it was kind of like an OJ Chase kind of thing.
I'm gonna say that since it did not impact me enough to remember it, and I did really like Evacuation Alert. I'm definitely going with Evacuation Alert. I love the gag, the blood gag. I love the spraying blood everywhere. It had a lot of fun jokes. Definitely Evacuation Alert for me.
DC Morning was with Ego.
I don't even remember. It's the one sketch out of all the Chappelle data that I got. Yeah. I can't remember that sketch.
I think Evacuation Alert is going to be how we go on this.
All right, so we're getting through the easy matchups, and thank you again, chat, for weighing in. This one, we're getting to the 11 seed versus the 6. We have the last call with Kate versus Potato Hole. So chat, please weigh in. And Victoria, over to you again.
Potato Hole. That's it. Okay.
Haynes. Rebuttal.
There's no rebuttal. I agree. It's Potato Hole. Potato Hole was so good, and it's so good. And if you like that, I mean, that is Chappelle Show, Victoria. It's like that. It's that type of comedy. Okay. But listen, I love Last Call. I love Sheila Sauvage character. I love those sketches. Really a big fan of those sketches. But Potato Hole was just so good.
All right. Well, if the chat, we're kind of tied in the chat right now. So if you can overrule Haynes and Victoria, then, if you want some last call votes in there, speak now. I can always overrule it if we get enough votes. But we're going to that meta press conference sketch, Jerry's Place versus the Football Party. So that's in Chappelle's first episode. Again, they have like a sketch bomb and immediately break to the dais of people in the sketch taking questions, and Mikey Day, was very new at the time on the cast, and no one wants to ask him a question. Dave lights up a cigarette, is answering. We left it out there. I thought the sketch was funny. I thought the name was funny. I thought the wigs were funny. All this stuff. They're all having Jerry curl wigs on and stuff. Versus the Football Party, where they have much like the Evacuation Alert. The main gag is seeing the breast milk squirt over Dave's face. Then they have Sashir come in, and she's the sister who's also being breastfed by Leslie. So if you guys remember that sketch, then please weigh in. But Haynes, over to you.
To me, this one's kind of a wash. I do love the physical gags, especially with anytime there's stuff squirting all over the place. Like that's funny to me. I, Vic, for our listeners who are not watching, Victoria's making faces. And obviously they're all wearing Panthers jerseys, so I remember this sketch well. Those were the good days for the Panthers. Here's to the future. But Jerry's Place, I think, is a little bit more creative. So to me, it's a little bit of a wash, but I think I would lean Jerry's Place. I wouldn't have a problem letting the comment section decide.
Well, the comment section's unanimous. It's Jerry's Place, so that's going to move on. And to quote, while we're doing a Chappelle night on By the Numbers, breast milk, you make my day. To making the band was amazing.
The whole every sketch is so quotable. Like, do it tonight, Victoria. Just please put on episode 1.
It's queued up. It's queued up.
She's like, please stop saying that to me.
I'll be honest, I'm a little scared because it's Chappelle and it's years and years and years ago. So I'll brace myself.
That makes it more exciting because it's already in the can. It's already been made. So this is the last of the round of 16. We have in the 15 seed, the Kids Talk Trump, where Dave comes in at the end to pick up his daughter. Vanessa Bayer leading a focus group of kids to talk about the election versus the 2 seed Barbershop Talk. Chat, weigh in while Victoria gives her thoughts.
I'm going to go with Barbershop only because I vaguely remember Kids Talk Trump. I can't really remember it. So
yeah, it's going back a ways. It was very quick pre-tape in the night too. Haynes, do you have any memories of these two?
Like, same answer. I barely remember Kids Talk, but I loved Barbershop Talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's got to be Barbershop Talk. But also, like, just a note, great job seating this. I think we went straight chalk. Like,
good. Yeah.
I will say too, the thing I liked about Barbershop Talk was Keenan's just not, his technique was not proper, and I like that.
All right. Deep cut right there. Okay, so that's the long round. That's the round of 16. So these ones, we're not going to comment on the sketches themselves because we already covered all 16 of them. So I'm going to go rapid fire to Victoria and Andrew every round. So the chat's going to have to be quick, but everyone voting, I appreciate you. I will shout you out. But we're going to go to the second round, Uncle Ben versus Walking Dead Chappelle's Show, which is the only pre-tape left in the bracket. Andrew.
Uncle Ben.
Victoria. All right, easy one. So everyone's I think agreeing on that one. And then we have Heaven Scene versus Election Night. We have a 5 seed versus a 4 seed. This is going to be a tough one, Victoria.
Election. Heaven
Scene.
Okay, we have a tie right now, so the chat will have to break the tie, or else I will have to step in. But this is definitely a tough one for me. I think rewatching season 42 Chappelle recently, I forgot how perfect, in hindsight, remembering the vibes around the 2016 election. So okay, we have Ken saying Heaven Scene, Eric, Sam, Urban saying Election Night, Demi saying Election Night, Dan saying Election Night. Election Night's gonna win. It's gonna stay chalk even by 1 seed right there. Okay, we have this week's evacuation alert versus potato hole. Victoria Franso.
Evacuation alert.
Andrew Haynes.
Potato hole.
We have another tie. I feel like Dana Carvey on the McLaughlin group, just saying, you all had Special K with banana. All right, so we have in the chat, so evacuation, 1, 2, 3, 4. Eric saying it's a close one. No one's saying potato hole. Ken George Jones said potato hole. So we're going to have to go with evacuation alert, staying chalk.
You're all wrong.
All right, potato hole overruled. Jerry's Place versus Barbershop Talk. We have 2 barbershop sketches against each other. The 7 seed versus the 2 seed. Andrew Haynes, what say you?
Barbershop Talk.
Victoria.
Baba.
Okay, we have 1 vote for Jerry, 2 vote for Jerry's. Okay, we have Barbershop Talk. It's going to be close, so you get your votes in quick. Gotta count them up. Oh, Jerry's Place could be the upset here. We have one. It's a complete tie right now. Okay. All right. Jerry's Place is going to take the upset. Shockingly.
Sam said Jerry's Place twice.
Okay. He's also saying Walking Dead should have won 2.
Election fraud. Election fraud.
Stop the count.
Stop the count.
Okay. I mean, barbershop. That's 2.
Okay. Someone said Jerry's. It's okay.
What? All right. Jerry's Place with the upset. I am shocked. But we get to the final 4 here. Uncle Ben versus Election Night. Andrew Haynes. This might be a tough one, but I think I know where you're going to go.
This is a tough one. And
don't be wrong. Don't be wrong. Don't be wrong.
This is a really tough one. Because they're both so funny in their own ways. I know we're not supposed to be talking through this. Oh God, I just got to pick one. Uncle Ben.
Victoria.
I agree. Uncle Ben.
Okay, so again, they agree, but if the chat can overrule them, like the Jerry's Place over Barbershop Talk,
chat,
I will allow that. It looks like Uncle Ben is winning the chat too. So Victoria and Andrew are not overruled on that one, making it to the finals. And who's going to join Uncle Ben in the finals? Will it be Evacuation Alert from this week, or will it be Jerry's Place going way back from his first episode? Andrew Haynes.
Jerry's Place.
Okay. So he's changed teams now because he wanted Barbershop Talk. Now he's on a Jerry. Could take down a 3 seed Victoria. Are we going to have a disagreement?
Yeah, yes, but it doesn't matter because the chat's chosen Jerry's, but I would have wanted Evacuation.
This for me, I could have been my number 1. So it is with a heavy heart that Evacuation Alert from this week does not move on into the finals. We have Uncle Ben versus Jerry. So chat, if you haven't voted yet or you've been voting all along, now is the time to do it. It's the end of the bracket. And Victoria, final thoughts. Who's it going to be as the champion of the Chappelle bracket on SNL?
Seeing as I haven't chosen Jerry's Place once, I'm going to choose Uncle Ben.
Okay. Haynes, are you going to switch back now off Jerry's Place? Are you going to stay with Uncle Ben from previous rounds?
Look at Pete Davidson's lips, America.
I do.
Uncle Ben.
All right. So we do have an agreement there. Right, Victoria, did you go with Uncle Ben?
Demi in the chat, really nailing it, right?
Victoria, remind me your vote.
I said Uncle Ben.
Okay, all right. So I'm tallying the chat. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't know why I'm being called out.
Because I want to get my numbers right. This is
no. I'm saying in the chat. They said Uncle Ben, and then they said WTF, Victoria. I said Uncle Ben.
Okay.
I can't win. I can't.
All right. So Haynes, I guess you're right. My seeding came true because we don't have a Cinderella story after all. It's no rags to riches. It's going to be Uncle Ben as the champion. Oops, I just copied the wrong one.
Wow.
There
That's
it
how
is.
election fraud happens, huh?
Yep, the voting machines. I don't want to get sued by Dominion.
Mike Dominion Murray.
Uncle Ben with the win. All right. Thank you. That was a fun exercise.
Wow.
Thank you, everyone who voted. Sam, Dan, Ken, Demi, Eric, Birds the Revenge. Shout out to you. Urban, everybody who voted. Really appreciate it. So we are going to move on to 5 questions. You guys ready to get grilled once again?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm getting grilled all night. Let's just add another segment to it.
Yeah, why not? All right, so this is the way it's going to work. Don't want to keep sharing all of that. But we're going to go over to Vamp. Pull out the questions. Okay. Question 1.
Roy of Siegfried and Roy. He was attacked by his own tiger and suffered devastating injuries.
What should Lorne Michaels' New Year's resolution be for 2025 for SNL? Victoria, SNL scholar, going to you first on this one.
I think you should stop trying so hard. I think sometimes they try to do things for certain audiences or try to get certain audiences. Just stop. Write the shit you want to. Write the stuff you want to write. Edit that out. Write the stuff you want to write. Be funny. You hire the people you hired for a reason. Stop trying to, pander to Gen Zs or boomers or whoever it is. Just do your thing. Okay. Just live, laugh, love in comedy. You can sometimes see that, they'll try a sketch that's very niche to a certain age group or a certain demographic. And it's just like, you don't have to try so hard. Just, go with the flow and we'll appreciate it.
You heard it here first, Lauren. Stop trying.
With all due respect to Savior Lauren.
What should SNL's New Year's resolution be?
Lauren's SNL's New Year's resolution should be to, once we get over this 50th anniversary celebration show hump, let's lose the overwhelming amount of cameos, which sometimes are very fun, but I feel like there's a freshness to the cast right now with the young folks that we have on there. Let's lean on that. Let's take some risks. Even if you're sitting there at the table read and it seems like one joke, one sketch is maybe getting a hair more laughs than the other, I would like to see us take some risk on this younger group because it feels like there's a freshness there, but we're not letting it out of the bag. Rip it open, Lauren. Let's see the freshness. Pop that bag for us.
Love it. Pop that balloon. I agree with the chat saying no more MSNBC cold opens because that cold open was rough. Question 2.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Speaking of Lauren, it seems like every year he tries to book a quote-unquote controversial host. And the ratings usually support him in that decision. So we trust our Lord and Savior, Lorne Michaels. So whether the episode's being good or not, it's a ratings hit when you get somebody who people just want to tune in for. I mean, it is a show to sell ads after all. So Victoria, I'm going to go to you first on this one again. Who is a controversial host? You can interpret that any way you want that you'd like to see that would make a good episode of SNL.
Well, you added on the last couple of parts, so I don't know. I think right now it's like very fresh. Not the president. I'll say that. Blake Lively, and if you've been following the drama, I think if she were to host SNL, one, she's an actress, so she could play and and have fun with the cast. But I think she would be a controversial host right now because it's like, girl, or Justin Baldoni, but I think the allegations against him are a little bit more serious. So,
all right,
Blake Lively.
We have a bring back Kanye in the chat. I mean, he was at SNL 40. Don't think he'll be at SNL 50. Andrew Haynes, who's a controversial host, some controversy at 8H that would make a good show. Because examples, of course, would be the Trumps, the Elons, which didn't make great shows. But like you could say, Shane Gillis at the time was definitely controversial, given that he was fired by the show and is now back. So it doesn't have to be someone in politics unless you wanted to be. So Haynes, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Diddy.
Cancel.
Who is a controversial?
Shot on location.
Someone controversial. Let me say.
I was gonna say you can't do that logistically. Everyone would be slipping all over the place.
Heyo.
Baby
The slippery pick.
It was a slippery pick. So would it be controversial to just pick like a comedian that, probably like 80% of America doesn't know about? Like, and it's just like, is that controversial enough, or that
I
they
don't
pick
think
a
so.
nobody? Yeah, then well, I've got to stick with Diddy. No, I don't know. It's hard to come up with a controversial pick off the top of my head that I would be comfortable with hosting and think would be good.
All right, I feel like the chat's being ironic, saying Dice and Steven Seagal, but I mean, for me, it would just be a comedian. Like, I know that Victoria alluded to it earlier. These kind of like podcast bros, a lot of them that I'm not fans of. But if they're funny, they're funny. I don't want to really infuse politics into these shows from the host necessarily. But a Theo Vaughn or somebody like that, like Tim Dillon. I don't know, these guys that are like
Theo Vaughn and Tim Dillon are both funnier than Matt Rife.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a conversation.
Or what's his name? Bobby Lee.
I don't think he'd be controversial. He's funny, but I don't think he's controversial.
I feel like he's a little controversial.
Because of Mad TV, that's controversial.
I just feel, well, I mean, again, maybe it's just my corner of the internet that clips him and is like, this is messed up to say. Or like Logan and Jake Paul.
I think what I'm struggling is I'm trying to think of someone controversial that I would actually like to see host.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, that's why I kind of just pointed it to it as a good show, as in if you pick someone who's funny, who has fans, it would be better than Elon Musk, who's not funny. Like, I just think that right there, a Shane Gillis is a... yeah, we're going to get censored. Okay. All right. Question 3.
This increased tension brings us to a new segment we like to call Really with Seth and Amy.
Dave Chappelle has brought back characters from Chappelle's show in 3 out of his 4 shows. Do you like seeing hosts? Let's count Dave out of it for the sake of this question, because we talked about him a lot. Do you like seeing hosts bring outside established media or work that they've done onto the SNL stage, or is it really just a chance to create original characters because they have an opportunity with them in the writer's room? Andrew?
Yes and no. I'll say yes with a caveat. The first time someone hosts, obviously we don't know that they're ever going to be back again. That can be a really fun time, especially like, say the first time that Chappelle came back, he had been kind of out of the scene. It was coming back into the scene, shortly before he did that hosting stint, but he was kind of like gone for like 15 years, blacklisted from Hollywood. So if we had a situation like that, bringing back some Chappelle show characters was awesome. But that's really just, we're just feeding the fans, that's who you're doing that for. And I do think it can be fun to see something that we haven't seen in a long time. If it's an old show that we all used to love, or some movie that is now a cult classic and we all hold near and dear to our hearts, I think it's fun to have a character on there. I don't need to see Chappelle show characters like going forward. I've seen enough of them. The first time was funny, and these other times were funny too. But to me, like particularly when the host is recurring, I don't need them to keep bringing back old characters. I'd love to take advantage of that opportunity to create a new character that can stick with them. I will say the fun thing about bringing a character back is it enriches the story of that character. So now we've got something extra in the canon. Like we can say, oh, this character, we know how they were on that show and we've thought of them that way our whole lives. And now we know, oh, also, they're a Swiftie or something. Like we just know that this new thing about this character. It's fun to add and build character. So that's a pro that comes with it. But I don't want to see hosts who are coming back just bringing back old characters. I really don't need to see that. The first time you host, great. After that, we don't need it anymore.
Fair point. Someone in the chat said, it's because Chappelle's show is so similar because it is sketch comedy, and we didn't really see that at all from Keegan-Michael Key. If Jordan Peele came out during the monologue or in a pre-tape, I'm sure people would have went nuts for it, but that didn't happen. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But Victoria, are there pros and cons? Because I can think of two like top of the dome, like Adam Driver being Kylo Ren, undercover boss, bringing in that media, Daniel Craig hosting right before COVID, I think it was, when he did like the monologue broke into like a pre-taped James Bond segment. So, cross promotion for sure, but also like Andrew said, maybe expanding on that universe. So what do you think as someone who has done sketch comedy? If you're guesting on SNL, do you want to bring back your best character, or you want to go to the writers and say, do your worst for me. Give me something crazy to do now.
I think I agree with Haynes in that the first time you host, a lot of people will know you for whatever it is you're doing outside of SNL. So maybe paying a little homage to it. Someone just called out that Zac Efron as Troy Bolton was good. I mean, something like that, where you've got a historical, very popular character. I don't mind it in the first one. And then after that, I kind of just want to see you and especially if you're known for one thing, I would love to see your versatility or what else is up in your brain. But I also think it depends. So if they're doing something new, it depends on, and how long it's been since the last time they've hosted. That if they're doing something else that's new and fresh and everyone loves, they can bring it into the show too. But yeah, I think overall I think that's a good golden rule. First time you host, sure. After that, let's get a little bit more creative.
Good points. You never know when there's going to be a Mr. Short-Term Memory in the writer's room for you to embrace. So on to question 4.
Say for me?
Bicycle.
Say for me?
Bicycle.
Bárbaras.
If you could take any SNL cast member in their prime and insert them into season 50's cast, who would be the best fit? So don't give me who is your favorite cast member, because unless it works, but who's the best fit for this cast right now? Victoria, you look like you might have something. I'm not sure, but I'm going to you.
Go to Haynes first.
Okay, Haynes, I'm going to you first. That was my plan all along.
There is one cast member who for sure could be in any cast, would work in any era, never missed. I mean, was on every single time they performed. And listen, we've got, and yes, part of the thing they did was sometimes like dad characters, and there's always a person on the show who can do a dad character. But there's no cast where Phil Hartman does not slaughter every time he's on the stage. That's a fact.
Completely agree with those takes. I may have a different answer for 2025, but Phil Hartman is the GOAT in my opinion. Victoria, do you have an answer?
So I do. And I think for me, I think people might think it's a lazy answer, but I truly believe it. I think she is just an incredible comedian. Her content in and out of SNL has always been some of my favorite. She probably is my favorite female cast member of all time. No, we'll think about that. And it's Kristen Wiig. I think she can be part of any era, any time. And I think she just has a lot of great recurring characters. I think she always has a very smart and unique take. And I think she would take what's ever going on in the world right now and apply it to this cast. I think she's I love her.
And when she's come back, I think she's been great. Definitely seamless. Could be in any era. For me, I'm gonna weigh in on this one because this is not someone who would ever be on my Mount Rushmore or my top 10. It's one of the greats. I adore this cast member, but it's never been like for me the upper echelon. I think it's Chris Farley. I think having someone of his nature and his comedic style and the physicality to bring I think it's Chris Farley for like this cast would just be absolutely dynamite in season 50. Haynes, you have a point?
Well, even though they're very different types of wacky, I could see him meshing super well with Sarah Sherman. I just feel like even though like she is one energy and he's another, and obviously both of them are very loud energies, but I could see them like working so well in a sketch together. Like as soon as you said that, it's just like sparks are flying.
Thank you. All right, on to question 5.
He's extra tiny today, yeah, but they're taking him away from me, yeah, tiny horse.
All right, this is our final one before SNL 50 on February 16th. So we have one more episode. It's Timothy Chalamet, double duty. So I'm going to ask your predictions as we wrap up the night. But since we are podcasting now and we don't have the knowledge ahead of what this episode will be, it's Chalamet's back for a third time. Will there be any inside the studio, illusion, foreshadowing, advertising in the show for SNL 50, whether that be cameos or just some juice to get us to hold over from this Saturday to the 16th? Andrew Haynes, what do you think? Any pitches, by the way, too?
Say what? What was the last
Any
thing?
pitches of your own, too, if you want to?
I don't think there will be foreshadowing or allusion to it. I think that it will get mentioned. I think it's guaranteed to get mentioned during Weekend Update. They might even make a joke about it. I don't know if you want to consider that alluding or foreshadowing, but I don't think they're gonna give us. I don't think it's gonna be real foreshadowing. Like they're going to touch on something and we won't know what it means. And then later we'll realize like, oh my gosh, they were predicting this or that. I think they'll mention it during Weekend Update, and it might also get mentioned during the monologue. Here we are, it's great to be back. I love SNL, the last show before the 50th anniversary celebration. I feel like it's going to be that type of thing. I don't feel like they're going to lean into it. I feel like it's a mention at best, really.
Fair enough. Victoria, will it just be any other episode? Like it could have been episode 2 or 3 of this season, or will it be a kickoff show of some sort?
Yeah, I think so. I was gonna say cameos, but they've been pouring them in this entire season. So I think if it's, I don't know. I think it might be just as Haynes said, maybe with some more cameos, and then we'll find out what happens the show after that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Haynes. I think that there could be a monologue shout out of some sort, but I guess time will tell, because there's going to be a lot of ideas that people might be putting in their pocket for SNL 50. So I hope that doesn't mean that they don't bring it this week for Timmy. And let's just move on. We're going to do our power rankings and say goodnight. But while we're talking about the show, any predictions musically, Andrew, for this show? We have Timothy Chalamet, double duty. I was shocked. I was in awe. I was in horror. I was every emotion. Is Timothy Chalamet SNL's Icarus flying too close to the sun, or could it be a cult classic?
Okay, so let me just try and wrap my brain around this. So start just a real straightforward question. Does Timothy Chalamet make music that I don't know about? Like, is he like a DJ? Just is he doing something?
I do not believe he is recording.
Or are we to assume that this means he's gonna like perform in Dylan character? I mean,
that's what I was thinking.
That's my hope, honestly.
That's what I was thinking. As like
I'll just real talk. I don't need fake Dylan. I don't need that. Sorry, Timothy. Keep it on the silver screen. Win yourself an Oscar if you can. But I don't need fake Dylan. Now,
are you saying that the times are changing? We don't need Dylan on SNL?
Wow.
That was a bad joke.
That was terrible. I
know. Yeah, you got to work it in. I welcome more. I hope there's more Dylan puns.
Sure.
I think that so if that's the case, if this is what we're supposed to surmise, that he is going to go out there in his Dylan character, then the only way that I will be able to swallow that pill and not look back on this with like a lot of cringe, and it's possible that he could just like blow me away and like make me think that I'm like reliving, or like with the real Bob. I guess that's possible, but I'm saying like less than 1% chance that I would react to it that way. I think that if he does come out as Dylan, this is what I would hope, is that like after the first chorus, going into the second verse, the real Bob Dylan walks out on stage, and we have and we have like a little bit of a duet thing, but really Timothée Chalamet gets out of the way, and we have this like freaking surprise Bob Dylan performance on SNL. That would be epic. It would be history. We'd talk about it forever. And in a much better way than we will talk about it, I assure you, if he goes out there and just plays a freaking character. That, to me, I don't need that.
All right. Well, my hope, just baseline, is that we get Bob to introduce the performance. That's I would get really giddy for that, just to see, ladies and gentlemen, Timmy Chalamet. I would go nuts for that. So, Victoria, are we going to see another side of Timmy Chalamet? Do you have a desire to see him perform? Is this just a freewheeling decision by SNL to do this? Like, what do you think about this all?
Is there a desire? For me personally, no.
Will there be blood on the tracks when it's all over?
Probably. If I had a guess, if he's not doing a Dylan bit, which I don't think, I don't know. At first I thought either it's going to be Dylan, or he's a soft indie boy and is going to play the guitar and sing some tunes. So who really knows about the Chalamet? Yeah, I did see like a video popped up a while ago of him rapping. And if he did that,
oh my God,
I would have to mute. But really, who's to say? Who's to say? I mean, people weren't expecting me to sing in my show, and I did. So
I did just come up with an idea that I would absolutely love. Okay, so imagine that, something like what Mike or I mentioned happens. Like either like Bob Dylan introduces Chalamet, or he comes out and performs with Chalamet. Either way, we've got Bob Dylan in the studios, because someone in the chat was saying, they mentioned JHJ's Dylan. Give me Bob Dylan coming onto a sketch later in the show with Chalamet, Dylan, and JAJ for a Dylan family reunion. That would be amazing. And everybody's just doing, of people of all ages and genders, just doing Bob Dylan impressions. That would be fun. All
right, you're getting me too.
Writing credit.
All right, we'll have to Highway 61 revisit this conversation after the show to see what happens. But let's bring it all back home. We have the power rankings of season 50 after 11 shows. And Victoria, you know it well, but let's take a look now. And if you could, just read us our new top 10, if you don't mind.
Top 10, all righty. Surprise, surprise, said no one, that Bowen is on top at a 90.5. Sarah climbing up a little bit with 83.8. Colin Jost, I had an inside joke, but no one would get it. It's 80.7. Heidi at number 4 with 75.1. Andrew Disnukes, a solid 74. Our girl Ego, 71.6. Marcelo, my king, climbing up at 65.3 at the number 7 spot. James Austin Johnson at a solid 62. Mikey Day at number 9 at 60.2. And then last but not least, at the number 10 rank is our boy Keenan at 58.5.
Right. So Keenan just cracking the top 10. He's a little bit ahead of 11. And so we're seeing Keenan, stat king of the podcast. He's now not only not in the dark green or the light green, he's in the yellow for the average power ranking. We had Sarah move up ahead of Colin Jost and Marcelo jump up ahead of JJ. Andrew Haynes, it's been a while since the Nate Bargatze show of season 49, where this graph looked entirely different in more ways than one. Just your overall take on the current top 10.
I love to see Sarah where she is. I felt like kind of from early on that she had star potential. I saw her on tour earlier this year, and she is just, I mean, it's so different than on the show, but she is just such a freaking powerhouse. Like that woman has so much insane energy. And
she's a what?
So what?
You said she's a what?
I said I saw her show. I said she's an insane. I said she's an insane powerhouse of energy.
Oh, I thought you said she's a freak, and I was like, hell yeah.
Oh well, I think I said she's a freaking powerhouse, but she's definitely a freak.
Oh.
Clearly, she's a freak. You know. So yeah. So
and you know what? Hell yeah.
Yes, of course, absolutely. Yeah, I love seeing Sarah up there. Doesn't surprise me where Heidi is. I do like to see Andrew climbing the chart. Doesn't surprise me that Marcelo is moving up as well. Marcelo had a little bit more of that early star energy, and Dismukes. It doesn't. But I'm glad to see Dismukes getting there because I just really like his writing, and his delivery and performance is awesome as well. But I really like his writing. So those are the things I'm happy with. It is surprising to see Keenan and Mikey so far down the list because last year or the year before that, like those would be at just top of the list. Just crushing numbers in general. Mikey and Keenan, I feel like we're always like just behind Kate a few years ago. But times have changed, like you said.
Well, Mikey's too busy with cake.
Right.
That's my
Is it
bad.
cake?
Is it? No, it's a stress ball.
I just quickly calculated last season. Episode 11 was the Iowa Debris show. I want to see what the power rankings were back then. We had Mikey at 3. We had Heidi at 2. We had Keenan at 5. We had Chloe Feynman at 7. We had Dismukes at 10 and Sarah at 9. So that's kind of the big movements in a year of SNL time to me. Victoria, could you go ahead and read us 11 through 17? There's a movement there at the bottom too.
Of course. Number 11 is Michael Che at 57.2. Then we have our girl Chloe. I'm kind of sad that I don't have to clarify which one, but we'll talk about that later at 54.6. Number 13 is Michael Longfellow at a solid 40. Then we have Emil Joachim at 38.9 in the number 14 position, followed by Devin at 38.6. Then last two, but not least two, Jane at 34.1, and then our girl Ashley Padilla at 33.4 in the number 17 spot.
All right, so
Justice
big story there.
Or Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley had a really strong week 6 through 8, where finally was getting to play. We saw her lead a sketch with Bill Burr in the night and had a good run after that. So like I mentioned earlier in the night, that was it was a record in the past, 5-6 seasons, bad night for featured players. So Emil hit the hardest with the shutout, but Devin, of course, did jump up from last place to 15th place. So I'd like to see Devin more in the, at least orange and yellow, if not the green that he's had this week at 91.7 for Devin. Question in the chat, how are these calculated? Well, Sam, they are calculated based on every stat that I collect, which is screen time and appearances, all into an algorithm that's a bunch of weighted averages to get one number to assess an individual's night on SNL. So whether that's the host, cameos, musical guest, cast, everybody just gets a number spit out of the machine of how their night was. So that way we can look back on episodes, seasons, decades, and see who had the biggest impact on the show that we all love. So Michael Longfellow, we have not mentioned him tonight really, other than his barbershop sketch from a couple of years ago. So love seeing him have a good night. He did play a murdered Bosnian for a second in the evacuation sketch, but big return to Weekend Update. Victoria, were you happy to see our friend Mikey Longs back at the desk? It's been too long.
Yes, I love the little, I don't know how folks do it, but the little No, I think and I also realized that a year ago today, I met him. So wow,
Today,
what a
on this
time.
day in SNL history?
On this day in SNL, I have a picture to prove it. Follow me on Instagram to see it. Anyway, no, I enjoy him.
No, I just pop this chicken dinner in and send it back in time.
On this day, Victoria Franso met the Michael Longfellow 2024.
For the second time. For the second time.
For the second time.
We talked about the show. So anyway,
SNL?
This show or SNL?
This show that we are on.
Nice.
SNL by the numbers, the home of SNL stats.
Yes. And just the entire Saturday night network, which his mom is apparently very fond of. And shout out to her. Thank you for watching.
Shout out, Victoria.
No, but honestly, he's great. In all seriousness, he's really great. If he's coming to your town for a stand-up show, please go see it. You already know he's funny. You'll be even more pleasantly surprised at just how funny he is. And I think the Weekend Update desk is kind of where he gets to exercise that muscle a little bit. And if someone should take over, obviously I would miss him from sketches, or not to say he couldn't be in sketches, but I think he would be a good person behind that desk. But always love to see that cutie patootie.
Yeah, I mean, he does like thick Latinas. So China knows that. Andrew, last time you were here, as I've mentioned, it was early in season 49, and we did a segment together. It was just me and you going back and forth on how Weekend Update was like shrinking in size. Like we saw this drop off in the duration of Weekend Update, and I led this campaign of, if they're gonna do an update switch, don't do it after 49, because then you're gonna have this golden season and you're gonna have two rookies up there. It's unfair. So either gonna keep them through 50 or do it early, like a Christmas show at 49. Of course, now we know that Shay and Jost are still here, and I would be shocked if they're not here at the end of the season. So I need to get a temperature check before we say goodnight. Is Michael Longfellow still the guy to take the desk, either a solo as a pair next season?
Michael Longfellow thrives at the desk, and if he was there every week in a suit and tie, he would own that desk.
Absolutely. This I can't speak for the SNN, but I can speak for the BTN. This show endorses Michael Longfellow on Weekend Update. So if you're listening, Mike, we love you. We want you to stay. And a regime change, as the prophecy is foretold, might happen. Season 51, Highway 51, not 61, revisited, will be Michael Longfellow. So we love you, Mike, and we're going to say goodnight. So Andrew Haynes, so good to have you back. Let's not make it so long next time. What have you got to say to the people who've missed you?
Just glad to be back. I'm sorry I couldn't be on, when you asked me, a little while back. I had wedding stuff. But it's great to be back, and obviously it's great to see Victoria. I haven't seen her in a really long time, and obviously love the fans who pop in the comments. We have such a smart and fun audience, so it's just nice to chat SNL. It's my favorite thing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We love the chat. We love the fans, the patrons. Everything you need to know about SNL. Season 20 is ahead, so please check that out. Coming up real soon. We have some SNL documentaries on cable and Peacock, so check those out as well. Victoria, now that you're a free agent of comedy, where can we check you out?
Funny enough, I am taking February off from comedy, but back in March, you'll see me at Go Comedy in Ferndale. I'm a resident company member, which just means I'm paid. So I'll be there. I'm also reading a book that everyone else should read, and it's called The Last Murder in Little Bridge, written by this great author, Andrew Haskell. Not
Shout
Haynes.
out Haskell.
The other Andrew H. It's about a small town, a lot of murder and a very silly story. That's I thought I was hosting backstory. I thought I was hosting with Haskell.
Where would I be then? Would I be on the show with you?
You're a given. This show doesn't happen without you.
I mean, if you were hosting, I feel like I could take the night off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was a guest. I'm just being picked on. Okay, today.
Yeah, I know. Watch Chappelle's show and then.
All right. Anyway, I got them mixed up. I was gonna do a bit. It's a great, but honestly, it is a good book. So.
All right, we're doing prop comedy. We're a little delirious. So we gotta say goodnight, but we will be back. So we have hot take show, round table. Victoria's holding banana for scale. We are brought to you by LateNighter.com. For Andrew Haynes, for Victoria Franso, everyone at the SNN, we love you and have a good one. I am Mike Murray. We will see you next week, Wednesday at 8. Timothy Chalamet.